Norman, wow, just how you went through all the detail, my personal life, my business, the great achievement here at Toastmaster. It's almost as if I wrote that myself. Thank you so much, just some kind words. Today, I want to talk about body language. And we're going to talk about three topics. One, we're going to talk about personal space. Secondly, we're going to talk about being closed up, crossed off. And then third, we're going to talk about really just being disengaged. All right, so let's dig into it a little bit. Now, if you guys go back in time to the mid to early 90s, there was a famous TV series out, Seinfeld. Most of us remember that. And in that TV series, you had the close talker. Anybody remember that?
Yeah.
Oh, it was just painful. Now, Brad, I'm going to come up a little close to you, okay? Now, if I was to come up close to Brad, very close, like say my face was this close to Brad, and we were going to have a conversation about, I don't know, coffee and adding sugar to it or whatever, and we were just up here, it would be very uncomfortable for Brad, right? It'd be very uncomfortable for me. And when you guys were looking at us, having this very awkward conversation, it would just be weird. Right, so have a true understanding of what personal space is, especially in business. You don't want to invade personal space. I would say probably in America that this is probably a comfortable distance for having a conversation with somebody. You just don't want to get too close. Topic number two, being closed off, arms crossed. I once had an ex, believe it or not. I'm sure we've all had some exes. And this ex, even though she said certain things, like I would say, honey, you look great, how's everything going? I'm doing great. Honey, I love you, would you like to go to the park? Yes, I'd like to go to the park with you. You can just see in that situation, right? She's saying one thing, I'm saying one thing, she's saying one thing, but she's so closed off and her arms are crossed, is conveying a completely different message. And I think you guys would agree, like sometimes in a business environment, right? In a business environment, you go in there and people are completely shut down with their arms crossed. And a lot of times, we just don't even think about it. I'm always like correcting my daughters on it. But sometimes, sometimes you're just cold. So that's just something to think about. Point number two is being disengaged, right? And specifically disengaged with your cell phone. Now, as you guys know from some previous talks that I've given up here, I now have a teenage daughter at home, right? And so the teenage daughter is just always like this. She's just always on her phone, always on her phone. And in business, as we all socialize in business, there's several of us that notice people that we converse with are always down on their phone, always down on their phone. So I want to talk about a story that happened to me recently. My boss and I fly all the way up to Minneapolis. And we go to Minneapolis, and guys, it's always the meeting before the meeting where you truly get the most work done, right? So we go to Minneapolis to have a conversation with some guys up there, and the meeting's going to take about 2 hours. But always when you go into a meeting, you have an opportunity to have the pre-meeting. And it's like, Doug, would you like some coffee? Would you like some water? Whatever. Use that opportunity to not be like this, but to truly be engaged in the moment. How you doing, Norman? Yes, I'm Doug from Kansas City. I have 2 kids. Yes, blah, blah, blah. Maureen, how are you doing? Oh, it sure is hot in Kansas City. What's it like up here in Minneapolis? Oh, well, it's hot in Minneapolis, right? So right then, just using this little bit of moment that we have, we build rapport. So when we get into the meeting room, we're sitting kind of in a formal setting. We already have some commonalities, and we start talking about standard operating procedures. When we bring up the sticky topic of a price increase, all that stuff, it's so much better because we're buddies. We have kids together, right? We know that it's hot. It's hot in Kansas City and it's hot up here in Minneapolis, right? So we've talked about a number of things today, right? We've talked about the awkward conversation of personal space. We've talked about arms crossed, and I was joking around about the X, and I even laughed a little bit that we all have X's or whatever. So be very conscious of your arms being crossed. And then point number 2, I was joking around about the situation at home with the teenage daughter on her phone or whatever, but also in business. Again, there's just many folks that always have their heads down. So we talked about the Minneapolis situation. Use that time to communicate with the folks in the room, have the pre-meeting, and you'll be a lot more successful when you have the main meeting. So guys, thank you very much for your time.